and thank you for that interest. And we are here, the delegation of Georgian Parliament, exactly for that, to meet our friends in this beautiful country and to remind everybody once again that we are your friends and we are eager to continue our cooperation. And before the Vilnius summit, there are some concrete issues on the table which we have discussed today with the speaker, with the members of the Parliament, and tomorrow we'll continue meetings with the officials from the executive branch. And we believe that the Vilnius summit will be another successful event for Georgia, and after that we'll continue our cooperation with our colleagues on more detailed agenda, how to become integral part of the European Union. So it's very symbolic that this meeting is going on in this European club. Yes, that's where we want to be, members of the European club, and therefore we are doing our best. And one of this demonstration of that desire and that readiness was the elections we had just 2 weeks ago, presidential elections, which in Georgia were called some strange elections. People were complaining that these are so boring elections. There are no such heated controversy between the government and the opposition as it happened during previous elections. And the international monitors were ready to recognize that this was another but big step forward to achieving the democratic standards we want to establish in our country. After these elections, we received new president, and the topic of this discussion is exactly what it means for Georgia, what is the political reality at the moment, and what we should expect. I'll focus my presentation on this topic, but of course I'm ready to answer any other questions you may have after this presentation. First of all, it should be noted that the presidential elections which we had just 2 weeks ago, there were kind of continuation of the parliamentary elections we had 1 year ago, October 1st, 2012. And the parliamentary elections then produced the results which changed the government and changed the majority in the parliament. Although the president had 1 more year in his office and he stayed at his office, however, the real power has already shifted to the Prime Minister's office. So we lived during this 1 year in a strange constitutional reality and real reality, because Constitution still was providing that it's the president who is heading the executive branch, who is responsible on policy, who is responsible on everything. But in fact, from this constitutional power, very few percentage was left in the hands of the president, basically issuing some pardons to prisoners or giving some amnesty orders and this kind of very symbolic functions which normally heads of states are exercising. And de facto power shifted to the prime minister. And that was the cohabitation, we called it. And after these presidential elections, that strange process will be ended. And that is one thing which this election brought. At the same time, these elections were important because after the inauguration of the new president, the new model of the constitution will be enacted. The model which Mr. Saakashvili and his team crafted and adopted in 2010. However, it was written in the constitution that this new model will become active after President Saakashvili would complete his second term in November 2013, and from that moment the new system will be enacted. And what is this new system? It shifts the power from the president to the prime minister, and it increases some role of the parliament and then decreases the role of the president. I will not speculate here what was the original idea behind this reform, but at the same time I would suggest to pay attention to these things, that the model was adopted in 2010 when president was Saakashvili, and the power would be shifted to the prime ministerial office as soon as President Saakashvili would complete his second and last term in the president's office. There were a lot of speculations, and I tend to believe that that was the case, that probably it was preparation for the next step in his leadership, and he could become the prime minister of the country and continue running the country. However, again, this is not a fact, this is rather speculation, but I believe it has some grounds. So in our reality, these presidential elections also mean that we elected first time a president who is not going to be head of the government, who is not going to be in charge of the government, and who is not going to run the country on a daily basis. This is first time in Georgian history, because our very first president, whom we elected in '91, Mr. Gamsakhourdia, was elected as president of presidential system, and that system remained unchanged until recently, and the power of the president was only increasing. Especially that was the case after constitutional reform of 2004, in 3 months after the Rose Revolution, when amendments were added to the constitution and the president's power was increased further, and who was sacrificed. Of course, it was the parliament, and that was the meaning of those reforms. So, first time now we will get the president who is going to be head of the state, and who will be serving as arbiter in times of crisis. This is a very new thing for Georgian society, because until now we used to have some supermen in the top, some heroes, fathers of the nation, or persons who were far away from the rest of the team, even if his own political team was concerned. This time we will have a different kind of president, something which is very normal, very usual in European systems, but for us it's different. Therefore, the question who is going to replace Saakashvili in his political role, is that new president Mr. Margvelashvili? No. He is different kind of person and different kind of president by his authority. Therefore, it's not right or correct question to analyze in this manner that whether he is good or bad replacement of Saakashvili. He's just different by authority and by personality. However, it's not the end of the story. With these presidential elections, we are changing the prime minister as well. Now, why it is happening? This is happening because the current prime minister, Mr. Ivanishvili, who entered to politics 2 years ago, in October, November 2011, made this very original statement like that I'm going to form party, I'm going to go on the elections, win parliamentary elections, become prime minister, and the governance of Saakashvili and his team, and then I will go home, in short. So a few months ago, Mr. Ivanishvili reminded to all of us this very last sentence of his original plan, and he said that he was serious then, and he is serious now about this intention. And he declared that he is going to step down immediately after the presidential elections. This statement of Mr. Ivanishvili became public about 5 months ago. There were many advices to him from different sources, telling him that that's not the right thing to do now. At least it's not the right thing to announce this before the presidential elections, which probably would hurt the candidate of the ruling coalition. But his vision, his arguments are different. He said he does not want to play games with the people. He wants to stay honest, and since he's going to step down, that should be known to the people from the beginning, not only after the elections he would suddenly say that I'm gone. Plus to that, he said that that was his intention. He never wanted to be in politics, and he was forced to come to politics, because by October 2011, the political reality in Georgia was very different. Opposition was very fragmented, and the reign of Saakashvili and his team was almost guaranteed for another foreseeable future. At the same time, it was more than evident that a larger part of the society wanted change. And that's why the change happened, not because Ivanishvili made a miracle. What Ivanishvili did was uniting the opposition, bringing self-confidence to the opposition leaders and parties, and bringing self-confidence to the people who otherwise were kind of very pessimistic about the results of the elections, about the fairness of the elections, about the, their rights being observed, and so on. So, Mr. Ivanishvili believes that he fulfilled his job, and as one of the goals were to fight against the messiahs, the Superman, he says that he needs to step down now. Otherwise, he may be entering in that role without his own intention, because he exercised this dominant role within the coalition and in the eyes of the population. That's why he did not wait even for another year, which from some perspective could be more logical, probably, because in that case, Georgia could complete the political cycle by holding local elections in May of next year, by completing the process of association agreement, by making, I don't know, more tangible NATO summit, more tangible progress in social or economic reforms, which we have started. Yeah, there are arguments which suggest that probably it was better if he waited. However, his explanation is that if he waits every month he stays as prime minister, he is occupying the role or he is becoming similar to the leader which he wants to fight against, or this dominant role of a personality in the politics. So I believe this issue will remain as something which will not bring, they will be very hard to reach consensus for just independent analysts, whether this is the right step or it's too early or too late or whatever. We understand this is quite unusual circumstances, but the thing is that the whole story of Ivanishvili's political activity was quite unusual, because his entry was unusual and his exit is unusual. That makes our life, our meaning Georgian politicians, across the party lines, in the majority, in the minority, in the people who are not in the parliament, kind of challenging, interesting and challenging as well. Because after 2-3 weeks, it will be first time when Georgian political Olymp will be empty in terms of having no dominant big leaders who were enjoying, I don't know, 90% popularity rate, and so on. Rather, we will have a young president who has huge experience of being active as a public person, but he is entering in real politics just recently. He entered, and he was Minister of Education in our government. Before, he served as rector of the Public Administration School of Georgia for many years. He was active NGO leader. He was very close to political life. He was very close to late Prime Minister Ajvania, and he was his kind of close teammate and his advisor. So everything what is related to Georgian politics is very well known to him. However, he was not that well known to the general public and general people. And we will have new prime minister, and the Georgian Dream Coalition already named such person. He is current Minister of Internal Affairs of Georgia. He is a young person as well. He entered to political scene together with Prime Minister Ivanishvili. He was a very instrumental figure in creation of the political party, which Ivanishvili started, political party Georgian Dream. And he is regarded as one of the successful ministers in our government. And that's still unfortunate reality that in country called Georgia, ministers of interior are the most important ministers. And he was the most important minister. I believe I want to have successful ministers of interior, but it would be better if we had leading ministers of economy, education, others. But that suggests about something, and our Ministry of Interior and Police needs further reforms in order to get to the standards. However, he was very successful in terms of managing this very complex system, which was, I remind you, regarded as backbone of the previous government. This was the term used by President Saakashvili some years ago. And without much problems there inside, he was able to make this system serving to the state without complications and so on. And he's quite smart person. He educated in Sorbonne University in public relations, international relations, and he has experience in financial sector and management as well. So we will have this new Prime Minister, Mr. Garibashvili, a new President Mrgvalashvili, who will be inaugurated on November 17th. And this will be the top leadership in the kind of executive branch and in the head of the state. The constitution, as I said, will be enacted at the moment of inauguration of the president. And from that moment, that will happen on November 17th, the government must resign as well. This is not a common thing when presidential elections result the government's resignation, but that was envisioned in this model of 2010, again, probably because of some intention to make that office available. That means that on November 17th, Ivanishvili and his government will be stepping down. They will be asked to continue functioning. And we expect that within 1 week or 10 days, we will complete the constitutional procedures of appointing new government. And the procedure is that the majority would suggest the prime minister, the candidate of the prime minister, to the new president. President will ask him to form the cabinet. The cabinet will come to the parliament for confidence vote. That means that Georgia will be represented here in Vilnius at the end of this month by the new president. For sure, I'm not sure about the prime minister because there are negotiations how to who should come here. But that will be the reality. Of course, the major question now is what these two charismatic leaders are going to do and what the people of Georgia are going to do with them, meaning Mr. Saakashvili and Mr. Ivanishvili. Of course, stories are different, realities are different, background is different, the future is different, but the new government and newly elected figures and newly appointed leaders of Georgia will be overloaded with these questions. On one hand, well, are you treating the former president in a proper way? There will be these questions. And are you on the phone all the time with the previous prime minister and asking advices all the time? This will be another set of questions to the new prime minister and new leaders. Well, we have to deal with these both issues successfully. Mr. Ivanishvili is not going back to his previous lifestyle, because when he entered to politics he was 55 years old, and by that time none of us who are here and in Georgia knew him on face. Very limited people were interacting with him. He never gave any interview to the media. Only interview he has given before was interview to Vedomosti in 2006 or 5. So he was very private person, busy with his charity and so on. Now he's not going to go home and lock the door and never appear to public. Rather, he wants to be active citizen and to promote activism in the society, in NGO cycles, in civil society, and so on and so on. He realizes that this is probably a more difficult job than he has completed in politics, because former politicians going to civil society are always again met with some suspicions. Why you are here, are you with us, or you are from there, and so on. Of course, there will be issues and problems. But the problem he has identified, that Georgia is lacking active citizens. This is the core of the problem. And if he managed to contributes to solving this problem, and he makes people more active, and then government more accountable to the people, that would be great achievement. However, again, it's quite a difficult job. Of course, there will be contacts with Ivanishvili kept by new government and myself. It's not the case that from after tomorrow we will just cut our phone connections. But at the same time, we are sincere when we are saying that he wants to leave, and there is no intention, and there is probably no reason to have him just behind the scene running the country, and it's not possible as well. Those who know, who have any experience in political life, understand that that's not that easy. That person is somewhere and leading the country and making decisions there. Although there will be questions like that. As for Saakashvili, what he's going to do and what is going to happen with him, it's very hard for me to say. Today I was very glad to have the chance to congratulate 87 years anniversary to the to your president Adamkus, and then after we left that room we were joking that for congratulating Saakashvili, that's 87 years, we need to wait another 40 years, 40 years. That means that he is very young, and he needs to do something during these 40 years to fill his life. I wish him all the success in his personal life. As for his political life, it's the job of his own party, which elected him as a chairman just recently again. What I think about his performance, probably I'll not waste time about that. I believe he was very successful at the beginning. I myself and the party I represent, the Republican Party, by the way, it's 4 days I am no more chairman of the party, because the Republican Party is the only party in Georgia which elects new leaders, and we just elected a young woman who will be leading the party. But of course I'm staying there, and I'll be a very active member. So Republican Party was in the alliance with Mr. Saakashvili back in 2003 when Rose Revolution happened, and before, still starting from 2001. And we went to the opposition in June 2004, after 6 months from his governance, I would say. So we have no problems with him as such, just vice versa. The promises to the Georgian people and to the rest of the world, which Georgia gave and Georgian government during Rose Revolution, were our promises as well. What we had as a problem was that Saakashvili departed from those promises in a number of important areas, basically in the democracy agenda. The same was with Ivanishvili. Mr. Ivanishvili was Saakashvili's best friend until 2008. And not only best friend chatting and advising, but financing from his private sources a lot of public work, including police reform, including paying high salaries for several years to the members of the cabinet and high-level public officials. Because when Saakashvili became president, the salary of the minister was $100 per month. And then there would be no surprises about the level of corruption we had. And Ivanishvili wanted to support in fighting corruption, and therefore there was a special fund for increasing salaries of the public servants until the budget revenues were increased, and then it went to budget. And there were a number of other things. So, but I would say 90% of the leadership of the Georgian Dream Coalition, who are now in the government positions or the leading positions of the parliament, they are former allies, political friends or ministers. Mr. Teddo Jafarიძე, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee of Georgia, one of them, Mr. Dolidzė, who is here, chairman of the for European Integration Committee, was ambassador under Saakashvili's government, and so on. I will not say anything about Mr. Gelashvili. This is a separate story. If there are questions, I am ready to tell what happened with him. So anyway, these are not people who seek any revenge against Saakashvili. We just want to complete the job, complete the agenda, which was declared in 2003, 2004, and go forward. That's why for us, it's so surprising that the world is surprised that we are trying to become closer to Europe and to NATO. Because before we were portrayed as like, I don't know, Kremlin agents who are getting all the instructions every day from there, how to ruin independent Georgia. No, that's not the case, and we are knocking on the door of NATO. We are reminding to NATO members that we remember promise of Bucharest summit, that Georgia must become, Georgia will become NATO member, and we want to deliver these results to Georgian people. That's why we are so hopeful about this Vilnius summit and the process afterwards. What happens in Georgia, it of course first of all depends on the current leadership in the parliament and in the government, but I believe the friends of Georgia will be with us, and you will find all the time some small amount of your time and resources for timely advice, timely questions, timely criticism, timely support, and in that case I believe everything will be fine. Thank you.